Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Dayspring Discussions. I'm your host Sean McGahee, and this is a show where we talk about movies, TV, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. If you geek out about it, we're going to talk about it. You can contact Dayspring Discussions on the Facebook group, Twitter account, and dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com, and you can listen to Dayspring Discussions on YouTube, iTunes, Podomatic, Patreon, and if you go there guys, be sure to like, rate, review, comment, whatever you want, join in the discussion, alright? So, you know what time it is, everyone knows what time it is. It is time for Dayspring Discussion discusses The Rise of Skywalker, guys. Lisa and I sat down on Thursday and watched The Rise of Skywalker, and then we went on Friday and watched The Rise of Skywalker. So here to talk about The Rise of Skywalker is Miss Lisa Locke McGahee.
Can we say The Rise of Skywalker a few more times?
The Rise of Skywalker. Okay, guys, so this is it. The one we've been waiting for. You know, we've been leading up to it, waiting months and months. We've been reviewing the whole live-action Star Wars films, of course. Hope you guys have listened to all of those and enjoyed them, but this is the big one. We've seen the film. We're going to talk about it now, guys, and we're going to talk full spoilers, okay? So, if you have not seen The Rise of Skywalker, go out, check it out, come back, listen to us, and then, like I said, comment and review yourself, join in the discussion, and then we'll just have a good time with it. So, without further ado, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Alright, guys, well, this is The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9, the final chapter in the Skywalker Saga, so they say. And this one, you know...
So they say, do you think that they're lying?
I don't know. I mean, we have another Skywalker out there now.
Yes.
Not a True Blood Skywalker, but...
They could change their mind and do
They
more,
could change their mind, exactly. You know, you never know about that. You know, there's always Jedi hiding in the galaxy. Why can't there be another Skywalker hiding in the galaxy? The Last Jedi, we can't talk about this film without talking about The Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's a movie that divided the fan base. Very much so. You know, even this household is divided on that film.
We sure are.
Exactly. So, originally, The Rise of Skywalker, Colin Trevorrow, who directed Jurassic World, was supposed to come in. He left the project, and J.J. Abrams came back to direct this one and also write it. And let's start off by just saying the obvious. This film is obviously a course correction from The Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and it just goes along with what, you know, obviously you and I have been talking about this movie now for several days, so it's going to seem like we're repeating ourselves, but we're not, because you guys haven't heard us say this yet. But, you know, I felt like, you know, and we, as you all, if you listen to our videos, know, Sean liked The Last Jedi. I did not. I mean, I didn't dislike all of it, but overall, I didn't like it, and the more I watch it, the more I don't like it. And so this movie just made it clear to me that when they started planning this new trilogy, that there was no long-term plan set up originally. Like, you know, because we were talking about yesterday, the original trilogy and the prequels both had a start and an end point already decided before the movies were written. There was a plan in place for how it was going to start and how it was going to end, and there was a clear path to get there. Whether or not you liked the clear path to get there, there was a clear path from beginning to end. The story made sense from start to finish. Where with these three, it does not appear that that is the case. It appears that Force Awakens started in one direction, and then Last Jedi did whatever it wanted, and then now the Rise of Skywalker is either trying to go back to where the Force Awakens originally was taking us, or is completely... I mean, because we don't know exactly what happened with Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi, we don't know the behind the scenes. So we don't know if he was given the plan and just did whatever he wanted, or if he wasn't given a plan at all, or if he was just ultimately given way too much freedom to do what he wanted, in which is really a stupid move in a middle piece of a three-piece puzzle. But whatever the reason was that Last Jedi did what it did, this one, I mean, and I think if you take this one out and look at Force Awakens and this one, those two do seem to have a cohesive.
I'll agree with that.
So it seems to me that The Last Jedi just went way off track, and then now this was the original plan, maybe, or this plan at least fits with The Force Awakens. I don't know, but it was just very obvious that there was no start to finish vision when these were written, and it's super clear.
Yeah, and I went back and I looked too. I mean, we talked about this. It's not so much the directing because the original trilogy had a different director for each one. It's the writing, yes, because J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan wrote The Force Awakens. Rian Johnson wrote The Last Jedi, and then Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams wrote this one, The Rise of Skywalker. And it's the difference in the writer, the fact that it's not all cohesive together is really what divided it amongst them. And, again, I don't blame Rian Johnson for that. I don't blame J.J. Abrams for that. It should have been, on a Lucasfilm level or a Disney level, it'll be like, hey guys, let's get the trilogy, let's get the story for the entire trilogy, in a framework. Because, George Lucas, say for the original trilogy, he had an outline of what he wanted to do. He knew where he was going from beginning to end. The details, I'm sure, were a little.
I'm sure he gave the writers more freedom with that.
Yeah, because in the original one, he wrote the first Star Wars, and then Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, he had help from Lawrence Kasdan.
Right.
And with that, I'm sure things changed along the way, but the main storyline
how it was going to end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, how it was going to start, how it was going to end.
Come on, do you really think he'd have Luke and Leia make out at the beginning of Empire if we found out later that they were going to be brother and sister? But anyway, they had the outline of where they wanted to go, the plot points, the story points, the major stuff they wanted to hit. And with this one, it just didn't seem like they had that.
No, it did not.
At least if they did, why did they let Rian Johnson, do what he did? I mean, I don't think it's one of the things where he, was able to get away with it, because obviously from Lucasfilm's history, that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't let directors get away with stuff.
So you bring up a good point, Kathleen Kennedy.
Okay.
So I've heard, we listen to other podcasts, and there's been a lot of people hating on not hate. That's not the right terminology.
No, it's hating.
It's hating. Fine. There's been a lot of people hating on Kathleen Kennedy for a while now, and I have defended her. I have staunchly defended her up until this point.
Ooh, I like this going.
Because I have always felt like they were and this is gonna completely the people who have been criticizing her have largely been male. And I have felt that it has been a more harsh criticism than it would have been for a man in her role.
Okay.
And we've talked about this a little. I don't know if we've talked about it much on the podcast, but I've talked to you about this, how I feel like people are judging her a little more harshly because she's a woman. Like where she's doing things that male producers and male executives do all the time and don't get this kind of criticism for. Anyway, at this point now that I've seen this one and it does seem like even more like Rian Johnson was off in left field, this I feel directly comes back to her.
Yeah.
Where was she? She should have been the one that had that. Even if she's not the storyboard, she's in charge of this. She should have been the one up front that said, what is the vision? What is the plan for these 3 films? Let's get directors on board who are gonna do our vision.
Yeah.
And so this, to me, I think comes right back to her. Ultimately, she is the one responsible for the fact that these 3 films do not fit together. They do not follow a timeline. They do not follow a storyline.
Yeah, and one thing we talked about yesterday, we were talking about it in the kitchen, is, regardless of what you feel about the prequels, it was one writer pretty much, and it was okay. It was a cohesive vision all the way through from beginning to end. He knew what he wanted to do. Execution-wise, he didn't exactly stick that, but the story, when you always say, if you look at the prequels just from a story outline perspective, it's a good story.
Well,
it flows.
People's criticisms of the prequels, except for the midichlorians, are not about the story.
Yeah.
I mean, not so much. I mean, I know I've told you this a million times. I feel like my biggest criticism is
Padme.
Is the women. The way it was very obvious to me watching that George Lucas did not have a lot of experience interacting or being in a relationship with women, because he treated women very unusually in that trilogy. But the story itself is sound. Like, at least it makes sense. Whether or not you like where the story went, it completely makes sense. Each piece fits naturally into the next one. So yeah, I think that the person, if we're going to be blaming anyone here, I think it's Kathleen Kennedy has to be the one who ultimately is held responsible for this.
The buck stops with her.
The buck stops with her.
Yep,
yeah, exactly.
When it comes to that, so.
And it should have been. I mean, if you're in charge of basically freaking in charge of Star Wars, and you're going to set out to make a 3-movie trilogy that you likely expect is going to end the Skywalker saga, like, you don't think that you had an idea at the beginning of how this is going to end? I mean, come on, like,
Yeah.
What? And then you just let the person who's making the second movie write and direct it entirely on his own?
Mm-hmm.
What the heck?
I mean, it's one of those things, because we know over at Marvel, like, with Kevin Feige, the way he likes to operate, he had the big cohesive vision for the entire, Marvel Cinematic Universe. And when he gets a director to come on, he's like, okay, you got to do this, this, and this, but then other than that, you're free to do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like it should be kind of that way.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's what she should have done, or what they should have done with, Rian Johnson, would be like, okay, this is where we're going.
These are a few really important things that have to happen.
Exactly. And then, other than that, do what you want. But at the same time, I feel like it kind of almost has to be the opposite way, where it'd be like, okay, this is what you're doing. You have a little leeway room with this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's kind of the opposite way of what it should have been.
Yeah.
Again, we just don't know how much.
Yeah.
It seems like
we weren't there, so we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know exactly. They keep on saying, that everything was as planned. Everything was as planned.
But it can't be. It can't be.
When this movie contradicts almost everything in The Last Jedi, it there's no way. I mean, it was just, it's one of those things where it was just fan service. I mean, and some of it's good, some of it's bad, but it's one of those things where I know. I was listening to Collider Jedi Council yesterday, and one of the guys that's on there, he was talking about how, Star Wars fans are very divided, on this film as well, because you have the people who like The Last Jedi that are pissed that stuff's being retconned, and then you have the people that didn't like The Last Jedi that don't feel like they want to continue on and watch this film because they didn't like The Last Jedi. So even though they're Star Wars fans, they're going to go see the movie.
Of course they are.
It doesn't matter, Just because you're pissed off at a franchise doesn't mean you don't still love it. Mm-hmm. You're going to go see it no matter what, just so you can bitch about it some more.
I mean, honestly, I feel like if you watch The Force Awakens, don't watch The Last Jedi, and then watch this one, you almost didn't miss anything.
Yeah, exactly. You really,
Like, you literally could just take out The Last Jedi, and the only thing that's going to be confusing is who the hell Rose is.
We should try that.
I honestly think that's all you're going to be confused about is who's Rose.
Let me think. I mean, the Kylo Rey, spiritual connection they have.
Yeah. Well, and Rey's connection to Luke,
and
obviously.
Snoke's gone.
So, okay.
So maybe not all of it.
Maybe not all of it. Well, I think if you watch only the parts of The Last Jedi that involve
Luke.
like Luke and Rey,
yeah,
then it kind of fits more naturally.
Yeah,
but it still doesn't even fit totally, because some of the stuff with Rey and Kylo was kind of retconned a little bit.
But basically, let's just say you can skip the Resistance stuff.
No, really, honestly, I mean, I think there's a few things you'd be confused about, but I think you could just take out The Last Jedi completely, and it would make more sense.
We'll have to do a test. We'll do a test sometime and figure that out. So, okay. All right, so let's get to the actual movie. Let's just do overall thoughts. After we've talked about, the production of it all, talk about general thoughts about The Rise of Skywalker. Lisa, what'd you think?
I liked it. I thought it was good. I mean, I didn't love it. It's definitely not in my top 5.
You liked it better than The Last Jedi?
I liked it much better than The Last Jedi.
Not as much as Force Awakens, though?
No, I think I still like Force Awakens, but I don't know. I have to think about that more. But
okay.
I definitely liked it better than The Last Jedi. No, I liked it. I mean, I left obviously confused about how the story played out compared to the Last Jedi, but I think as a film by itself, if I just take it outside of everything else, I liked it. I thought that it was entertaining. I think there was a lot of really good emotional, reactions. There was a lot of good emotional bits. I mean, it didn't do what I expected it to do. No, that's not true. It didn't do what I wanted it to do necessarily, but I am not unhappy with how it played out.
It's funny because you said that when we walked out of the theater, and I told you that's exactly how I felt about The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Nothing I predicted was going to happen, but I was satisfied with what I got, and it was just funny you used that phrasing.
Yeah, since that's completely different. But no, I liked it. I thought that the acting was well done. I thought, aside from Finn, I thought the acting was better than the last one. And I mean, I thought it was good. I liked how it ended. I mean, I liked it.
Okay, all right. For me, people always say, we've been doing this for a while, to where we'll go and we'll watch a film, especially a Star Wars or an Avengers film, double it up. Do opening night and then the very night after, because I always tell people, for a film that I'm highly anticipating, I need to get a second viewing, because the first viewing, you have all the expectations of what you want it to be, what you hope it to be, and then the second viewing, you can go back knowing what you're getting into and just enjoy the film for what it is. The first night we saw this film, I hated it. I did not like it at all because of the fact that it was rectifying stuff in The Last Jedi. So I really did not dislike it. But we went back.
You mean you didn't like it?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
You said you didn't dislike it.
Okay, anyway.
So you didn't like it.
You know how I'm bad with words.
I know.
So anyway, the second night I go back, and I appreciate the film for what it is, and I liked it more. Like, when I first walked out that first night, I was like, oh gosh, this is like bottom 3 for me. No. And after the second viewing, I'm like, you know what? It's pretty good.
So here's my thing. As much as I feel like this definitely course corrected from The Last Jedi, I don't think that they retconned that much stuff. So I guess aside from Rey's heritage, what else was retconned?
I mean, of course, there's the whole thing with Snoke and people because
that wasn't retconned.
So here's my big thing is, and I had this fear walking into it, or even after watching The Last Jedi, when I heard that Palpatine was going to be in this. For most fans were like, oh, Palpatine, yeah, that's cool, that's going to be cool, right? And my whole thing...
I didn't think that. I thought it was odd.
Well, I thought, exactly. Also, I was like, the fan of me is like, oh, yeah, but then I thought about it, I was like, The Last Jedi, to me, sets up so clearly that Kylo Ren will be the main villain in the episode 9. And I'm like, so why are they bringing in Palpatine?
I don't think it did that.
With the way the Last Jedi, the way he turned away from the good completely to seize power of the First Order.
Yeah.
The way he was acting, he was full on villain to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that I think goes along to how I think that was the one thing I think that everyone was pretty sure about, was that he was not going to be redeemed. He was the villain. He chose the dark side
twice,
and he had been choosing the darkness. Mm-hmm. So I think that was one thing. I don't want to say, I don't believe it was a retcon thing here, but I think that was because obviously they didn't change anything. They just made a different ending than we all expected. But I think that was one thing that they did outside of what the fans were expecting. Mm-hmm. I don't believe anybody expected him really to be redeemed.
Yeah, again, a lot of people didn't want him to be redeemed. There was that, all of us have been thinking he probably would be.
I didn't think that. I honestly thought that they had set this up so clearly, not just in The Last Jedi, but also in Force Awakens.
Well,
I thought it had been set up so clearly that he was not gonna turn to the good, that he could not possibly after what he had done. I was sure. That was the one thing that took me most off guard in this one, was that they did redeem him in the end.
I think as soon as they said they were going to bring in Palpatine, I knew he was going to be redeemed. Because it's like, okay, they're going to, team up against him, which pretty much is what they did.
Yeah.
And like, okay, if you bring in a bigger baddie, then I know, then the bad guy you have is, gonna turn.
Yeah.
I just figured that's how it is. And, yes, redemption is a part of Star Wars, not only with Anakin Skywalker, but there are multiple characters. Just in this...
Oh, there's a lot of redemption.
Yeah, there's a lot of redemption. So it makes sense. I just, at the end of The Last Jedi, I felt like he was the villain. He chose the dark side several times, made the wrong choice, so that was what it is.
But as much as I wasn't expecting them to do that, and I didn't think that they should do that, I did like how they did it.
I don't know, because that's the thing. When I watched it a second time, I tried to study the turn. I tried to study, what it was. And I think, it was one of the things like, okay, we're talking about if Kylo Ren or Ben Solo in this film, what does he do in this film? So he goes out to seek Palpatine because he, wants to be top dog. And Palpatine's like, hey, if you join me and bring me Rey or kill Rey, I'll give you this whole fleet to command, and then you will have
more power.
More power, exactly, which is what he wanted in The Last Jedi, is the power. Mm-hmm. So he goes out, he hunts down Rey, he's looking for Rey. And then, of course, along the way, he's like, join me, we can, rule the galaxy together, because that's what bad guys do, right?
Right.
In this area. And it was until, I think it was when, the moment when Leia contacted him, Leia and Rey stabbed him, that, he kind of was the death of Kylo Ren, as his father put it, is what it is.
Right. That's what I think ultimately, and what this film did, and I do believe that's one reason that it did kind of fit with the others, is they hinted at it in The Last Jedi when he didn't blow up the bridge.
He didn't kill his mother.
His mother. The ultimate tie to the light for him has been his mother.
Uh-huh.
And I think that her contacting him, and then him having that vision of his dad, where he was able to come to peace with what was really inside of him, and his. So like I said, I didn't think that it was what they should have done necessarily. I don't believe they should have redeemed him, but in how they did it, I definitely, I liked
agree
it.
with that.
I liked how it played out.
I liked the moment with him and his and Harrison Ford, his dad, because, you know, the way it played out, obviously almost direct dialogue, is they're replaying the scene from The Force Awakens.
Oh, yeah.
Is what would have happened instead, going the
what
good way.
What should have happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what should have happened was him say, you know, I don't know if I have the strength to do this, and, you know, even, you know, touches his face like he did, all that stuff.
I thought it was perfect.
It was exactly, it was just replaying, again, going into The Force Awakens and just skipping over The Last
Jedi.
Yeah,
exactly. I thought it was very well done. And how he and Rey played off each other, because I think Rey has always, with him, even in The Last Jedi, had that where she wants him to be better.
Yeah.
Like, she sees Ben. From the beginning, she has seen Ben.
She can fix him.
I guess.
She can fix him, right, girls?
So she's been able to see Ben behind the Kylo Ren mask. And I like how the emotional tie that they had. Like, I think that all the scenes with them, were very, like, especially the scene where she, basically kills him and saves him, whatever.
Yeah.
I thought the emotion between both of their, like, their acting, their faces, like, their it was very, very believable.
Well, it was a defining moment for both of them, because I think, that was one of the things I did. Kylo Ren died in that moment, and also it was a moment for Rey where, she gave into her hate a little bit, and then that's when she went off to try to say, nope, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to live on Octu, and I'm going to be secluded, that moment for both, that's why she ran off like she did.
Yeah.
So for both of them, but yeah, when she stabbed him, she essentially killed Kylo Ren, is, what it came down to. But, one of those things, too, is Leia saved Rey.
Yes, she did.
Like, she was going to lose that fight, and it was by her contacting her son is, how it all flipped. So, in essence, Leia saved everything, is what it was, with her sacrifice.
Yeah.
In there, so.
But anyway, so back to the whole retconning thing.
Yes.
So, aside from Rey's parentage, what was retcon? Because everyone keeps talking about how they retconned The Last Jedi, that's the only thing I can see that they retconned. Is Rey's parentage.
Just again, for me, it's Kylo Ren too. The fact that he.
But that wasn't. They didn't retcon that. They just changed.
They changed it.
They swiveled in the plan.
They went so far. Again, I think The Last Jedi went so far. Again, when I walked out of The Last Jedi, I felt like, yes, Kylo Ren is evil. He's not going back, and I'm sure with JJ's plan to always bring him back, because that's, again, redemption is a part of Star Wars.
Right.
I get it, but.
I just don't see that as a retcon.
It seemed off to me,
because it wasn't. It wasn't something that you couldn't change the path. So the only thing that has been retconned was Rey's parentage.
Okay, so let's get into that. Okay, Rey's parentage.
So this is leading to Palpatine anyway.
This is leading to Palpatine anyway. And oh my God, when I first heard him say it on the bridge of the Star Destroyer, it was, to me, a moment. I compare it to when in Superman versus Batman, or whatever you call it, Dawn of Justice, it was when, Zod became Doomsday and he came out, and I'm like, okay, I'm out of this film. I'm just gonna sit here and just wait for it to end, whatever. I was so upset about it. You knew it was coming too, because when she did the lightning, when she did the lightning, which, God forbid, no other Star Wars character ever has had Force lightning except Palpatine. Not, but you knew when she had the lightning, you knew that's where they were going. And we're like, okay, God damn it, fucking A. I just hoped it was going to be like something where, she is a powerful Jedi and has the potential to tap into that powerful darkness, but you knew it was where they were going with it. And I told you after, the second viewing, I'm okay with it. I would much rather her have stayed a nobody. Because, for the entirety of the Jedi Order, Jedi have popped up without being related to anybody else.
Well, because that's what we talked about. According to the Jedi Order, you aren't supposed to have those kinds of attachments. So Jedi really aren't supposed to procreate. Now, we have in, the books seen a lot of instances where Jedis have.
Yes.
It's all generally under the table, like Anakin and Padme. Obviously, the Jedi didn't know that Anakin was married and was having children.
They were the exception, yes.
Right, but they weren't the only ones. There are other cases where Jedi did have children. I think no matter how strong your Jedi Order is telling you that you can't have emotional attachments, people are not always rule followers.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to go too far into this, but look at the Catholic Church. You know?
Right? Yeah, exactly. There are very few instances where people can keep that
celibacy.
I mean, that's a human urge. It's a natural human urge. You know, love, lust, that kind of stuff. It's normal. So I think to expect that the Jedi honestly never procreated is ridiculous.
So in the Legends universe too, when Luke rebuilt the Jedi Order, he didn't have that rule.
Right. So, but because it did exist and it still exists technically in canon, but there have been other cases even in canon, like in the Dooku book.
Yeah.
There's another example where there's a kid who was a Jedi with Dooku, like when they were kids, and it turns out that his mother was one of the Jedi was Jedi Master, and she kept him secret, because she knew what would happen to her if the Jedi found out. But she was the one who recruited children, so she was able to hide him somewhere and then go back and get him when he was started to show Force abilities, and raised him in the Jedi. But he never knew she was his mother.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I mean, I think having. Like, even though we've said, I think her coming from nobody would have been completely 100% reasonable because, for two reasons. Number one, like we said, the Jedi weren't supposed to procreate. So there's, thousands in Jedi over the years that were not from a Jedi lineage. And then additionally, people have said, well, she's so powerful though. But that is also very easily explained. When you have the Force as powerful as it is, and you only have 2 people utilizing the dark side right now and nobody utilizing the light side because Luke had cut himself off. So there was literally nobody there. And they needed to balance. So of course, if you have one person that is now accessing the light side of the Force, they're going to be pretty fucking powerful because they have to balance what's there on the dark.
And that's what we got from The Last Jedi was Rey was the balance. Even, Snoke talked about it. Rey was the balance between, Kylo Ren and him. That's why she was so powerful.
That's why she was so powerful.
And again, that kind of craps on that in The Last Jedi.
It doesn't crap on it, no.
No, she's not powerful because she's the balance. She's just powerful because she's Palpatine.
No, that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
That's exactly what they said in this film.
No, that doesn't. No, they did not say that. But I'm just saying that I'm not saying that isn't true. Yes, they are also saying that she's powerful because she's a Palpatine. They did say that in this film. Yes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the other explanation is not also still valid. She is also super powerful because nobody is accessing, because she is the light side balance. I mean, I think they go very hard throughout this film to show that she is the light. I mean, putting her in lighter and lighter clothing, showing her goodness, showing her compassion. They did everything they could to show how strong she was on the light side. So I still think that even though they are saying now she's a Palpatine, I still think her power comes from just having that lineage doesn't necessarily mean that you will be. I mean, her parents didn't say anything about if her parents were her father.
They chose to be nobody,
right?
Like, so he probably didn't ever train, didn't ever care.
Yeah, but you don't know that. We don't know that. We're totally guessing. We don't. And generally, even people who choose not to use their Force abilities can and will use them by instinct when their lives are threatened.
Yes.
And they did not. So it is very possible her father did not have any Force abilities.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you think that if he had shown it, Palpatine would have tried to recruit him as his?
Well, he ran away too, of course.
But he was already an adult then. He already was married.
We don't know the history.
But we know that he was married and had a child. We know that.
And he could have hidden away from Palpatine the entire time.
I mean, it is possible.
The mom, what Palpatine's, mistress or whatever that gave a child could have hid the child and grown up.
Yes, it is very possible. But what they're saying is this kind of power you can't keep it under control for too long.
Yeah, and
it's still there. And anyway, my point is, I don't think that her power coming from the light and her being a Palpatine necessarily contradict each other.
Yeah.
I think they can complement each other, and I think that the movies did make it where those two things together do complement each other.
Yeah.
And so I also don't think that was a retcon. I think this was just a way that I think it was a very creative way that JJ took what happened in Last Jedi and tried to make it work.
Yeah, and they emphasized the connection between the two of them more as well. I mean, in the last one they said that Snoke created the connection, and in this one they kind of emphasized that it was a connection that had not been seen in generations, is what Palpatine said. So the two of them were very close.
But possibly because they were the only two really accessing the Force.
Yeah, the ones that true, like, Force users in the whole galaxy at that time as well.
Yeah.
And so with Palpatine, here's another thing is, when they said they were going to bring back Palpatine, and everyone was like, how did he survive the Death Star? They still didn't tell us how he survived.
They still did not explain
If you want to say he's a clone, that's fine. If you want to say he was, saved and crawled away right before it exploded, okay, but give me some explanation.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that they even remotely said was when Kylo Ren said, I'll kill you, he said, I've died before. So, that was definitely a hole that was left open, is how did that even happen?
Yeah.
Because if he was a clone, who's to say that he's really gone?
Yeah, and then it's one of the things, too, where he was working this whole time, behind the scenes. He pretty much was Snoke.
Yes.
That's what it is. Now, whether he was, Snoke was just a minion of his, or if he was like, his mind was in Snoke or something like that.
We don't know.
We don't know. Exactly. We don't know. And there's this... Again, I feel like they shoehorned Palpatine in there.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
He wasn't needed for this last film, and they shoehorned him in there just to, again, fan service.
Fan service. Yeah, except in a way it's weird, though, because it wasn't like fans were hoping for him to come back or fans were wanting him to come back.
But as soon as everyone heard about it,
then
that
people
big
were
old
excited.
uproar.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think it was a weird choice. And, I mean, I think the way that they executed it was good.
As good as they could be, yeah.
Yes, but I definitely think it was an unusual choice.
I mean...
And I kind of wish that it had just been Rey versus Kylo in the end, and not Rey and Kylo
whether
versus
he be
Palpatine.
redeemed, it could have been one of those things where I would much rather have seen it been like, if Kylo was going to be redeemed, yes, they have the whole scene like they did, on Endor, he gets saved, stuff like that, and then they just try to take down the First Order, try to take down Richard E. Grant's character, Pride, or whatever,
Because, I mean, really, once you turned him, the First Order would fall. He's the leader.
Yeah.
So...
But then, of course, his general would rise up against him. I mean, that seems like a more interesting side than that is. I'm okay with her being a Palpatine because, like I said, I would prefer her to be a nobody because I think it's a stronger message. But again, Palpatine is the worst evil the galaxy has ever known, allegedly. So her coming from that lineage and choosing to be good, it gives the message of it doesn't matter where you come from, you forge your own destiny. Yeah. I get it. It's a side message to what the original Rey storyline was we got in The Last Jedi, so I'm okay with it. It's still, it's close enough.
But on that same token, it goes into where that's what a lot of people are saying, how this I've seen, those articles about how this storyline totally shits on Rey's purpose, but I don't agree. I don't remember what that article said, but I remember when we read that article, I was like, I don't agree with much that he says, but a few things. But
I think it's parallel.
Yeah, but I think what this shows is whether she's a nobody or she's a Palpatine, bottom line is she chose her destiny. So I think, sure, either way, no matter what, it's Rey becoming who she wants to be, who she thinks that she should be. And yeah, in the end, she decided that she wanted to be a Skywalker, that Luke and Leia were the driving force for her.
By the way, I mean, as soon as you got that question of, in the festival, we're like, oh, what's your last name? Like, I don't have one. You're like, oh, it's going. Because that's what I thought. Originally, when we got the title of this, that was my theory, was she's going to adopt the name of Skywalker. People were like, also were saying like, oh no, she's going to create the new line of Jedi, which will be called Skywalkers. But those are the two main theories. And, I went with that one, and of course it came out to be true.
I mean, and I think that I like that. I think it was appropriate to her journey, because her journey was, she didn't know who she was. She didn't know who she came from. She didn't know who she was supposed to be. She had spent her whole childhood hoping that somebody was going to come back and rescue her and tell her who she really was, where ultimately, even when she finds out who they were and what her past was, she still chooses her own way.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just said, she's waiting for someone to tell her who she is. She has to make who she is.
And she says that herself several times. People keep telling me who I am. I don't think anybody knows. Yeah. And I think that she was right. Like, in the end, she decided who she was going to be. It wasn't who anybody thought she was. It wasn't who Poe thought she was. It wasn't who Finn thought she was. It wasn't who Kylo Ren thought she was. It wasn't who Palpatine thought she was. She decided her own destiny. She chose her own adventure, as you say, from those books we used to read when we were kids. And And I think that she is, at the end of the day, she is happy and comfortable with her choice. And I like it. I like how they did that.
Did you ever go back and you chose your part of the story and then you're like, no, I don't like that. I'm gonna go back and choose a different way.
Yeah, I totally did that.
Maybe that's what happened to this movie. They went back. They're going to Last Jedi and they're like, okay, let's go this way. No, I don't like this way. Let's go this way. This is the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
seems like that. But
yeah.
So I think we covered Rey pretty well for the most part, and of course I think we covered Kylo Ren pretty good for the most part. So let's get into some of the other characters. We covered Palpatine. So let's go into Leia. I want to talk Leia. Obviously, we knew this one was going to be a challenge because of Carrie Fisher's tragic death several years ago, and they were using archive footage. It even says right here on IMDb, archive footage of Carrie Fisher.
I was super impressed with how they did it. I thought when I heard they were only going to use archive footage that she would only be on screen a couple of times. They used her far more than I expected.
Yeah.
And there weren't that many moments that looked CGI corrected. Like
I could tell. The way her head was positioned, I could see it was a little off.
There weren't very many times. I mean, I think most of the times it looked pretty natural. I was very surprised.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was surprised. From a story perspective, I liked, because we heard that, as far as the original cast members, the big three, Han was supposed to be big in The Force Awakens, Luke was supposed to be big in The Last Jedi, and then Leia's was going to be big in The Rise of Skywalker. Carrie Fisher's death kind of changed that a little bit, but you can see they still tried to use as much as they could.
And I think they did a great job still making her role.
In regards to, you can see that she's been helping Rey train in the Force, so she started calling her master with all that, and then also at the end where she, and again, like I said, essentially saves the day, saves Kylo's, all that stuff. So yeah, she still has, I think, a pivotal role. In the film.
I'm super surprised how they did it. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, I'm glad what they did with her. There are a couple things, the main thing I guess with her would be the whole lightsaber giving back and forth at the beginning, and be like, I'll give you your brother's lightsaber back when I deserve it, and then 2 minutes later she just gives it right back, which is kind of how it goes along. I've talked about this later maybe, but the coin with Carrie Russell's character, she immediately shows the coin and how important it is to her, which is something you think is going to come into play later on in the film. No, 2 minutes later she's giving it away. I'm like, it's a little too soon, which goes into, again, when I first saw the film, I thought everything was so, fast-paced, rushing right through. When I go back and watch it the second time, I didn't think it was as rushed, but I still feel like it was a little too fast-paced.
I thought that giving him that thing with her was fine.
I think
when it didn't strike me as being too fast. They already had a relationship, so I mean, I think if she had just met him,
but she wanted to kill him when we first see her.
Yeah, but I think that was all. They had a lot of sexual tension. It was obvious.
You think he'd make her keep the helmet on?
There was so much obvious sexual tension.
That Daft Punk helmet.
Anyway, I think because it was established, very well established right away that they had a history, that it wasn't completely outside of the ordinary, and because of how Rey kind of won her over so quickly, it didn't strike me at all as being too soon.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so back to Leia. So the end, her demise, I guess you would say. I liked it. Again, what do you think happened? Okay, because we talked about this a little bit. She dies, and then her body's there, but then when Ben dies, he fades away into the Force at the same time she does. So I feel like when she reached out to him in that part of the film, she almost established a connection to him within the Force, almost like, she's saving his soul, which is why he was allowed to become one with the Force at the end, is the way I saw it. And that's why she didn't fade away till he did, because she established that connection. How do you see it?
I don't know. I feel like too many people are fucking fading away in the Force nowadays. Like, back in the day, Qui-Gon didn't.
No, because he was the one that started it, where, he became the first one to become one with the Force, and then he had to show Obi-Wan and Yoda how to do it.
So now everyone just gets to freaking fade to the Force?
I think it makes sense for Luke, because, Luke studied under Yoda and Obi-Wan.
It makes sense for them.
I can see why that happens. I can see why, Luke could have passed it on to Leia. I can see why that happens.
I guess.
Ben is the question mark.
So maybe because, like you said, if she is. I mean, I think it definitely shows that they were tied in some way.
Yeah.
That was the only explanation for why they faded at the same time.
Yeah.
Like she was waiting for him almost. But I mean, I guess that makes sense then.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I can only understand it. You know me, I try to give any film the benefit of the doubt, try to look on the positive side, try to have it make sense, and to me, that's the way it makes sense. I could be wrong. Maybe.
No, I think that does sound reasonable.
Yeah, and that's why, again, why he had the turn as well, too, because, again, she pretty much saved his soul, is what it came down to. So, Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker,
yeah, I mean, he wasn't
you knew
there
he
much.
was coming at some point. And, you know, there was the moment, people have talked about this, where the part that you hate in The Last Jedi, where he throws the lightsaber behind his back,
I hate that part.
it's the opposite, where, you know, Rey throws it.
Yeah, and then he's telling her how important it is. I thought that was rude. That was a retcon right there.
But, again, you got to think of the journey that he went through in The Last Jedi and learn to, you know, come back into the fight and how important Rey is and all that. So, of course, he would be saving it. To me, the best moment in all of this, as far as the Luke Skywalker part, was in The Last Jedi. You know, they're walking through the island, and Rey looks down at the water and sees that Luke has buried his X-Wing in the water, okay? And the whole time of that film, when Luke's coming back in the fight or something, I wanted a scene where Luke lifted the X-Wing out of the water because he couldn't do it in Empire. Remember?
Yeah.
So I wanted that scene where he finally lifts the X-Wing out of the water, and I was waiting all Last Jedi for it. I didn't get it, but I got it in this film. So for me, and it was the same music as it was in that scene when Yoda was doing
when Yoda
it.
did it.
So I love that part of it. People were like, "Oh, that's just a rehash," and I'm like, "No, it's, you know, think of it from a story
He's
perspective."
never done it before.
He's never done it before.
He probably has, but
God, think how soggy that X-Wing is. It's been there
I know.
at least a couple of years it was underwater.
oh, probably more than
And
a
it
couple
probably
years.
smells horrible. I'm surprised it even worked, honestly. I'm very surprised how it worked. But with the start parts, you know, he didn't have as much, you know, I didn't think I'd expect a lot from him in this
No, I mean,
either.
I think he came in when he needed to be, he did what he needed to do.
Yeah, and, you know, letting Rey know that, you know,
They didn't
confronting the
overdo
Jedi, Rey has to do it. Much like how Obi-Wan talked to Luke in Return of the Jedi. He's like, you have to confront Vader and the Emperor. And then he's like, no, you have to confront Palpatine and Kylo Ren, otherwise the Jedi are doomed. This is what it came down to. So, you know, he served his purpose. That was fine. So before we wrapped up the Jedi, let's get to it, the voices.
Right.
The voices, you know, where, and I like, again, they established that in the beginning. You got to give them the story credit for that, where, you know, Rey was doing her training and she's like, I can't hear them. You know, she's trying to connect to all the other Jedi at the beginning. She's like, I can't hear them. Then at the end, she finally hears them. She hears all the Jedi. And of course, you know, guys, if you stay for the credits, you can see all the list of voices that she heard.
Because the first time through, like, I heard Anakin clearly.
Yeah.
But the rest of them just seemed kind of like a jumble to me.
I heard both Obi-Wans. I heard Luke, Anakin.
Oh, well, I heard Luke for sure.
I heard Mace Windu.
See, I did. Even
then,
both times.
And
I
then, of
couldn't
course,
hear.
there's a couple others we didn't hear because there was Kanan Jarrus, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Ashley Eckstein as Ahsoka Tano.
And see, I heard the second time through, I was listening for them, and I did.
I heard Ashley twice, and I heard Freddie once.
Yeah, I heard Freddie once, and I heard Ashley.
And then there was another one. What was Kanan's master's name? There was another one. I forget what her name was, but she was the other voice. Out of the ones we listed, she was the other voice in it. I'll have to go back and look, but I forget. Yeah, she's someone I don't recognize. Like, I know that name, but I can't remember where exactly she fits in exactly. But there was another Jedi in there too. I think it's probably Clone Wars related. I think, if anything. But anyway, so you hear all the voices. That's how. With Palpatine, he's like, I am all the Sith, and people are comparing that moment to Endgame with Robert Downey Jr. He's like, I am Iron Man, and Rey's like, I am all the Jedi, or something like that. Well, the thing with Palpatine was, okay, the people up in the bleachers, were those like just his followers?
I don't know. Were those actually real people?
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know.
I know. I don't think we're supposed to know.
Now, someone
maybe.
has said, look at the visual dictionary. The visual dictionary, you know, that's what I love about those visual dictionaries. It fills in some of those gaps.
Like, because I had no idea. I assumed that they weren't real.
Yeah,
people.
in The Last Jedi, you know, I had a question about who Snoke's guards were, the Praetorian Guards, and in the visual dictionary, it describes them as just, you know, kind of a step up from what the Emperor's, you know, Red Guards were, is what it is.
Unless that planet had people that lived there. and those were
Maybe.
them. Like
I thought
maybe
that
he like
it was-
enslaved them, kind of.
Well, they established it as a Sith like homeworld. And going into Legends, the Sith were an actual race of people before they became, a part of the
Dark
Force
Force
users.
users.
Exactly. So maybe they're going that way with it. I don't know. We don't know. That's the thing.
I don't think it was
know.
supposed to be something people dwelled on. It was just like there, so there's an audience.
And we're talking
whatever.
about Palpatine, of course. He's talking about how he is every one of the Sith, and he's like wants Rey to kill him so then he can transfer his power into her. Again, going into legend stuff with the Dark Empire, where they brought back Palpatine, and because they established that he had a whole room full of clones of his body, and when his one body decayed, he would just transfer his essence to a fresh body and just keep doing that, which is how he continued to live and live. And again, that's kind of the explanation. It made sense to do that in this film, and I feel like it's kind of what they almost hinted at, especially with what's his name in the Resistance. He talked about cloning.
Oh yeah. The character that
The guy from Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Yes, exactly.
Dominic Monaghan.
Yes, he kind of mentioned that. So again, you almost kind of got the sense of that's what happened, but they didn't actually tell. They didn't actually say yes, that is what happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
Again, it's just how did he survive? That's another question
know.
we didn't have and all of that. So
Yeah.
okay, I think we covered the Force pretty well on that one. Okay, so let's move on to the characters. Let's talk about Finn.
Oh God.
Because Finn, okay. You and I were talking. I mentioned this after the film as well. There was a part where they were sinking into the sand, and Finn was like, "Rey, I gotta tell you." And
Everyone
he never
knows what he was gonna say.
No, J.J. Abrams came out yesterday and said what he was gonna tell Rey.
What?
Well, if you think about it in the sense of the film, you get it, okay? Because in the film, what happened? And that's the thing with Finn in this one. I was trying to find his character arc. I understood his character arc in Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. I was trying to understand his character arc in this one, and I really didn't get it. We got Kylo, or we got Rey.
Everyone else,
even Poe, had his own character arc in this one, and I couldn't find Finn's. But what happens, towards the end of the film is he's sensing Rey, and J.J. Abrams said what he wanted to tell Rey is that he feels like he's force sensitive. That's the director's and the writer's standpoint of it.
I mean, I was gonna say something about how at the end he sensed her, that he must have some force ability. Although I think that's a weird way to go, because the First Order, I feel like in some way Kylo Ren would have sensed it if that was there in him. I mean, that's what they do. They look for children that have force sensitivity and they try to destroy them. It seems unusual that they all of a sudden at this point in his life. What?
But think back of that first scene in Force Awakens. Yes, there was that part where Kylo Ren looked at Finn thinking, okay, he didn't fire, I can sense the conflict within him. What if he was sensing something else?
I mean, I guess it's possible, but I mean, I think what 99.9%
I agree. I'm reaching. I know I'm reaching.
Especially with everything else that Finn did in this film. He didn't really have a story arc. All he did was chase after Rey, trying to save her and shouting her name. Dude, she doesn't need you. Like, get a grip. I mean, come on. Like, he looked like a helpless little, lovesick puppy in this movie.
It wasn't until, he chased after her for so long, and it wasn't until, one thing I like about this as well is the introduction of the other character. I forget what her name. No, was that her name? The black woman? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you find out she is a former First Order trooper herself,
and her whole crew
is, and
he has a different purpose.
Exactly, then. He has a different. He actually gets a purpose in the film and a different direction to go with it, and that's where I start. His story kind of broke apart, and I love that where. Finn, the whole thing was, he was a stormtrooper who defected. Oh, a stormtrooper who defected. And I'm like, okay, let's think about it from a real world sense, okay? Even the Nazis had people that didn't want to do their jobs. They're in a galaxy full of what? Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the Empire. There had to be a good handful of people that wanted to leave.
See, here's the difference, though, and this is why I think it's makes more sense that these stormtroopers defect. The First Order took children from their families and brainwashed them to be stormtroopers.
A lot could be said for the Jedi, too.
Right, I guess so.
Other side. Anyway, go.
But my point is the Empire was basically filled with people who chose to be there.
Yeah.
So it's different. Like, I feel like it makes more sense in this sense.
Okay.
Because the First Order... I got you. The First Order didn't say, come join the First Order. No. They said, I'm taking all of your children and I'm going to make them First Order stormtroopers. I got you. Where the Empire... I mean, if you get nothing out of Lost Stars, you see those people, they chose to be there. Yeah. They honestly thought that they believed in the Empire. And sure, there were people who over the years were like, I kind of see what you're doing now. Maybe this isn't so great. And they did try to defect, or they got stuck, like, I'm drawing a blank on her name now. The main character in that one.
In Lost Stars,
where she didn't agree anymore. She saw what they had become, but she had no choice but to stay, because if she didn't, she would be killed. Anyway, I do think that it makes complete sense in this case that there would be more stormtroopers who would defect, because... Yeah. They were forced to be there. Yeah, and with this too, I mean, that's the story I want to hear. I mean, that's the story I want to get in the book, especially, at the end. I would love to see that
with Jana.
Her, she said her whole company, like, I'd love that.
Yeah, I'd love to read that story. I think it'd be very interesting, of course, and of course at the end, I feel like they kind of set it up like that, where Lando's like, well, let's find out where you came from. Do you like that Lando voice?
It's great.
Hello, what have we here?
It's better than most of your other accents.
Boom, yes, I can do a Lando. I nailed it. All right. Okay, yeah, but I'd love to see that. And again, one of the things, just talking about some of the new characters as well, when you bring in new characters in a third film, and that's another reason why I felt like, bringing in Palpatine, bringing in, all these new characters for this third one, you don't get a lot of new characters in a third act of a trilogy because you have to wrap up all the other characters that you have. So again, it made it feel a little more jam-packed. You didn't get much time with them as far as character moments, but I liked, Jana, and I liked Zori. So I'd love to see more.
I definitely want to see a Zori and Poe story now.
Okay, now I got to go back, but when they're talking about that, because she talked about how Poe used to run Spice. But if I remember correctly from the Poe Dameron comic, he was a Republic, X-Wing fighter because of who his parents were. They were, rebels and, helped start the Republic. He went straight from that to working with Leia and the Resistance.
Maybe this was before he worked for the New Republic.
Exactly. Maybe like his real younger years. I don't know.
Well, we don't know how much time elapsed.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's not that... I mean, who knows? The Resistance really hasn't been acting that long.
Yeah.
And,
Just from the comic I remember, he went straight from... He's been in the Republic his whole life and then went straight to Resistance. But, again, I could be remembering it wrong, or maybe there's gaps.
Well, nobody, is a Republic fighter pilot when they're a child. Like, there surely is some point where he, finished whatever they would have, their high school equivalent, and then was trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life. Where maybe he ran Spice, got to be a good pilot, and then decided maybe I'll go be a pilot for the New Republic, and then got recruited by Leia. I mean,
Well, if we're talking about Poe, let's go straight into Poe, played by Oscar Isaac.
I really like Poe in this one.
I liked him, and again, at the beginning, the little banter he had. You know me, I like anything with, quick, witty banter.
I think that the three of them had great banter.
And I want to criticize a little bit because, him and Rey, feel like they first met at the end of The Last Jedi, as we talked about. So to feel like they had that trio connection a little too soon, maybe, compared to the fact that two of them have only met within, the last film, in that sense. But they did try to do a good job of sensing that they had been together. They worked together enough that where they would have that kind of, connection with all of it. So that, I'll buy it. I don't totally believe it, but I'll get it.
I mean, I think the big connection is through Finn.
Yeah.
Finn, I don't think... I mean, Oscar Isaac... Okay, Poe and Rey, I think it shows that they knew each other, but I don't think that they were, crazy close. They had a lot of issues. He didn't understand what she was doing. She didn't understand what he was doing. I think that first opening scene where he comes back with the Falcon and it's on fire, and I mean, I think what that scene shows is that they know each other, but they are not 100% on board with each other. Yeah. They don't understand each other.
Yeah, and that's what they definitely did that because, when he talked about what they were out doing and what are you doing here? You know?
Oh yeah, they definitely didn't understand each other. But what they had in common was Finn. And I think Finn is what made their connection so strong. And then when they went on this new journey together, then it kind of solidified. But even in that, I don't think you're supposed to think that Poe and Rey are BFFs. I think that they're I don't want to say frenemies because that's like but you know,
Yeah.
they don't understand each other, but they both
Respect
know
each other.
and they know what they need to do. And that Finn is the one that brings them together in that connection. Because if you look at all the scenes when they're together, even like the hugs at the end, it's always Rey always leans into Finn.
Finn, and when you look at the hug, Finn's in the middle.
Finn's in the middle, right? And when she first goes up to them, she grabs Finn. Poe is like this. So I think that even though I think that they showed the three of them have that, Finn is the key to their relationship.
I agree with that. Okay. And again, this with Poe, I'm glad you had the scene in here where he's sitting by Leia's body,
saying that he didn't know what to do.
And immediately you go to Resistance Reborn. Where it's the scene. That scene is exactly what the Resistance Reborn's set up
leading up to
about how he has to step up and lead the Resistance.
But he's afraid to.
Exactly.
He's afraid of making another big mistake like he did in The Last Jedi, and then he ends up doing it. He feels like that again. When he gets to the battle here, he's like, I did it again. Like, I'm so sorry, everybody. I thought I could do this. I apparently can't. And then he ends up being redeemed.
Because again, the part where he's talking to Zori, he's like, "I feel like we're gonna lose, and no one's behind us or whatever." And again, at the end, everyone shows up to help. He establishes that. Talking about kind of Resistance Reborn tie-in with Leia, they in going to this one about how it was going to take all her strength to do that last act with trying to save her son's soul, as I keep referring to it. In the Resistance Reborn, they talk about how she's still weak from her whole Mary Poppins in Space act. And even right before she does the thing she does with Ben, she's hobbling off. They kind of try to establish again still she's weak.
Yeah.
So doing this last act would kill her, much like how, with Luke, doing something that takes immense power is going to take the physical toll and it's going to end you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Resistance Reborn tie-in. As a person who read the book or listened to the book, as I would say, you got that. You got that part of it is what you did. So
yeah,
kudos.
But yeah, I thought that they used Poe's character incredibly well in this. One thing I like that tied in to this one from Resistance Reborn, and then as I mentioned before, I think that this movie ties in a lot with the Aftermath trilogy. But I like when at the final battle, because Snap Wexley has been kind of strewn about in these films, but if you haven't read the books, I don't think most people are probably like, I don't know why they keep focusing on him.
You see him because you see him in Force Awakens. He's a side character, or whatever.
Yeah, but he's like a total minor side character, but they keep showing him. So I think people who haven't read the books are probably like, why do they keep showing this guy? Like, who the hell is he? Where if you've read the books, like, who he is, and then I think that newest book really shows just how close Poe and him were, because he was on Poe's squad. He was part of Black Squadron. So the Aftermath trilogy introduces him. Although one thing that I'm curious about now is that book introduces his wife, and she is not anywhere.
We don't know. Well, okay, let's go back after we're done here and look through the credits
to see if
she's named.
Because I was looking for her the whole time because I was like, but that anyway. I mean,
they showed several female,
but they never
pilots.
showed anyone with him.
Yeah,
like surely they would have been together at some point.
But
like, a kiss goodbye before they went off to battle.
But no, 99% of the fans aren't going to know what that is.
No, but 99% of the fans don't know who he is, and they keep showing him. I'm just saying that was that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
okay. Anyway, you were going somewhere with this.
Yeah. So like that, I think in the reaction. I think if you've read the books and you know that Snap was a part of Black Squadron, it makes Poe's reaction to when he dies make more sense. Because Poe has pilots dying all around him in that scene there. And he doesn't have that reaction until Snap. And then you see the anguish on his face when Snap dies. And I think for me that was more impactful because I've read the book and I know Snap because I read the Aftermath trilogy, which is where he's a kid. You know, he grows up in that and becomes a pilot, and Wedge trains him, and you know that whole history of him from that book. So for me, seeing when he died and Poe's reaction was even like it was much more impactful.
I haven't read Aftermath, but I know Snap, from comics and other stuff like that. So again, I felt it a little bit as well.
Yeah, and then just seeing Poe's reaction, I thought was awesome.
Which, okay, if you're talking about that, Wedge is in there. Wedge comes back. You were talking about maybe Wedge coming back.
Yeah, well then I was like, well, where was Nora though? That's Snap's mom.
Yeah,
Wedge's wife.
You didn't have time to show everyone, so you don't know that. Okay, but since we're talking about battle and Star Destroyers or whatever, man. One thing that I didn't, again, I'll watch this film 100 times and I won't like it. Every Death Star now has a planet-killing weapon.
Every
Star Destroyer has a Death Star type weapon.
Yeah.
I'm like, seriously, JJ, can you just get off it already? Mm-hmm. I mean, God, it's like I didn't like that was. No, not going to buy it. Not now, not ever. Nope, not going to buy it.
I did think that was a little over the top.
Exactly, like quit doing this, okay? Mm-hmm. I mean,
he can't keep destroying planets. There'll be no more people to control.
But at the same time, it makes the Death Star less special too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Starkiller Base. Okay, you want to get away with this? That's fine, but to make just every Star Destroyer have a planet-killing weapon that's essentially the Death Star, it soils it in my eyes. So, okay, Anthony Daniels, C-3PO. This is one of the things.
I love how they use 3PO.
He's always been comic relief, and you know, a lot of times throughout the entire Star Wars saga, I get C-3PO. I haven't always liked him. I didn't like some of that stuff. Again, he was there for comic relief. He did what he was supposed to, and you know, he's never landed to me well. Anyways,
I love 3PO,
but I respect him as the character, and I understand his part in all this, which is great. And you know, I get what they did with him in this one about, you know, having to get the information about the Sith dagger and all that stuff. But again, going back to just things happening so fast in this movie, and you know, lightsabers being traded back and forth, coins being traded back and forth so quickly, him getting his memory back, I didn't like it.
So, but here's the thing, okay, because I've heard complaints, you know, about how that whole big like lead up to 3PO losing his memory. It was supposed to
be a huge character moment, right? That, you know, was
except we know he's already had his memory wiped how many times. He doesn't know that, and those people there didn't know that, but everybody watching it knows this is not the first time that 3PO has had a memory wipe.
And I will give you this. I knew as soon as they said that R2 had it backed up his memory, I knew it was coming back, but I didn't like it.
But they had to do that scene that way because 3PO didn't know that. And Rey and Poe and Finn, they didn't know that. None of them know that 3PO has had a memory wipe on several occasions. But everybody watching it knew that. So for 3PO, it was a huge moment. He thought he was giving something up. He really thought, this is me sacrificing
myself
to help. Like it was a big moment for him.
Okay,
sure.
I'll agree with you on that.
I mean, but we know that he gets his memory wiped all the goddamn time. Mm-hmm. You know, we know that, and so. But I thought that aside from that moment, which you don't like, which I just explained to you why it's important,
and I totally understand. Again, that's why we do this thing so we can understand each other's point of view more.
But I personally, because I've always liked 3PO. I mean, he didn't have a huge part, obviously, in the original trilogy. Not really.
No, he I think, you know, he hasn't had a
I meant the prequels. The prequels, I meant.
The prequels,
yes. Because he's built in the first one, and then he kind of spends a lot of time, you know, they don't really even bring him with them.
He's comic relief, especially in Attack of the Clones, the whole droid factory thing.
Right, for sure. You know, and that one, I think it's kind of stupid. It's more for kids. Yeah. But I think he has a lot of good moments in the original trilogy. I think he's one of the reasons I enjoy, I think, Return of the Jedi so much. Because I like when they're in Jabba's, you know. I mean, I like him in Return of the Jedi.
And I love him in the Ewok Village,
yeah,
too,
I mean, I think he's great in that one. And I think this one, to me, is equal to that. This is my favorite use of 3PO in this film. I think the way he played off of everybody else was perfect.
Poe. I like the way him and Poe.
Oh, my gosh.
Because it's totally reminiscent of playing off Han.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that this one, for me, I liked 3PO in this one. I can't decide if I liked him better than I liked him in Return of the Jedi, but I think this was a really great send-off for Anthony Daniels and all the years he has given to this character to give him this really great 3PO adventure, because 3PO was great.
It was 3PO's moment.
Yeah,
what it is. In the entire, you know, saga, this was his moment.
Yeah, and all the ways that he just played off all the characters in this one, I thought it was great. I thought it was amazing. I really loved
I've just
3PO.
never been a 3PO fan.
I know, and I am, and I really enjoyed 3PO in this one. I thought his little quips were so good, like when they fall through the thing, and you know, Poe's like looking for everyone. He's like, I know you didn't ask about me, but I'm fine. You know, like exactly. All his little things like that.
Again, it's one of those over the top lines, like too many jokes. Again,
I didn't think it was too many.
I think it was just a little too many.
I didn't think it was too many.
Okay, have some strong feelings about this one. General Hux.
I really don't like how he went out.
Oh my God.
I like that they made him a spy. I do think that worked.
I think, well, they didn't. I like the fact that at the end they made him a spy because, with his relationship with Kylo Ren, he doesn't necessarily want to work for the First Order. He just wants to see Kylo Ren fail.
Well, no. He wants to be the leader of the First Order.
That's why he wants Kylo Ren to fail.
Right. So it's not that he doesn't want to work for the First Order. He does. But he wants Kylo Ren to fail.
I meant to say Resistance. I'm sorry. I meant to say Resistance.
Oh, right. Yeah. He wants to be the leader of the First Order. He hates Kylo Ren with, all his soul. He hates him.
Yeah.
And, so, I think making him the spy, I like that. But what I don't like is, and this is just going to lead right into General Pride, is all of a sudden this General Pride comes out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. He apparently is more powerful. He has apparently been working with the Emperor since way back when. Yeah, since forever. They don't really explain where he came from, why he has this connection. They don't really tell you anything about him. But all of a sudden he seems to be there and he seems to be over Hux. Well, up until now, they have made it seem like Hux is the number one behind Kylo Ren. To
Snoke, but Hux probably had nothing to do, didn't even know the Emperor. He didn't know probably that Snoke was the Emperor, I bet.
No, I don't think that he did. But that's what I'm saying is they seem to, in these films, you're supposed to understand that Hux is the top dog under... Snoke.
Like we talked about.
It's like Snoke pyramid, there's Snoke, and right under him...
Yeah, like we talked about in our Last Jedi, he was like the Tarkin kind of position.
Right, exactly. It was like, you had the Empire and you had Tarkin and Vader. This was supposed to be, Snoke and then Hux and Kylo Ren. So all of a sudden they bring in this other character. They make it to where he is the one who's actually running things. And then they make Hux the spy, which I liked. But then just the way they killed him like that, I was kind of like...
I think that was a reaction to how he was treated in The Last Jedi. Because he was made such a fool in The Last Jedi, people won't respect him as a character anymore. So what else could you do with him?
Yeah, you have to bring in somebody stronger than him. Because,
exactly.
That was one of my biggest criticisms. Well, not my biggest. One of my criticisms with The Last Jedi. And we talked about this in our Last Jedi thing. I don't like how they made him look like a fool. Because he's not a fool. And they made him look like an idiot.
I wanted him to have that... I talked about this when we talked about The Last Jedi. I wanted him to have that redemptive moment of power, where, he gets his dignity back.
Yeah,
he gets his pride back. And he did not have it. I think in a way he kind of did because he was trying to defy Kylo Ren and trying to take him down, which I thought he was going to do anyway. But the fact that it was just like... Boom, you're dead.
Yeah, I did not like how they did that. But like you said, they had to do that based on what happened in The Last Jedi. Because The Last Jedi really took his character and just shot all over
Yeah,
him.
and they gave us what, we wanted in General Hux, which was General Pride, is what it was.
Right.
So, Pride, another character from this film, I want to see more about. I want to learn about his relationship with the Emperor and how, has he been working for the Emperor the whole time, which is why he comes in now, because the Emperor has revealed himself. All that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
Lupita Nyong'o is back as Maz Kanata. Again, not a big role.
But I thought it was much better than her bit in The Last Jedi.
I mean, she was horseshoed into The Last Jedi. This one, she was much better. Although, I gotta say, though, at the very end, she was by Leia's side when she faded away. Everyone was going to go fight. Why was she still there?
True.
It's like, well, what? I mean, in the Last Jedi, we saw her, slinging a gun and fighting a battle. I mean, she couldn't pilot a ship or what?
Maybe she's injured?
No, I don't think so. But anyway, yes, she had a small role, but she was fine with that. The part at the end with Chewie. Now, let's go back. Let's go into Chewie with this one. Chewie, I think played a bigger part in this one than he had in the other sequel films. He's always been the side character, the best friend, Uncle Chewie. That's one thing I wish, is when they captured Chewie, I wanted a Ben Chewie moment. Like, I wanted to see him see Uncle Chewie. Especially after the last time they saw each other, he shot him in the chest. I wanted that moment between them when he got brought aboard the ship and we didn't get it, which I'm a little disappointed in. But again, I told you this too. When they arrive right after Leia's death and they find out that Leia is dead, I love Chewie's reaction. And people, I've listened to, a couple of reviews and people have criticized, well, why didn't he have that reaction, when Han died? I'm like, when Han died, he was in the middle of a freaking battle.
Yeah, he couldn't stop and cry.
He grieved later on, This one, it was a much quieter moment where he had that time to fall to his knees and cry. Plus, again, I was talking to you about this, about how it's when that moment happened, I immediately thought of Empire Strikes Back, and in the Legends Tale Shadows of the Empire, he was very protective of Leia. It's set in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. He was very protective of Leia, that whole storyline, because that's the last thing Han told her was, the princess, you have to take care of her. And I felt like, with Han's passing in The Force Awakens, Chewie took on that role again of trying to protect Leia or Rey, also in this instance too. But if you think about it, Han was his best friend. He's been by his side all these years, okay? So who's the second most person he probably has the most time with? Leia. So for him to react how it was, I mean, that was the one part of the film I started to tear up. The reaction he had. So I love that part of it. And also the fact that everyone else's reaction when Chewie died too.
Oh my gosh.
The way Rey played it off.
I thought when the look on her face, like, I mean, Daisy Ridley hasn't done a whole lot, but she's a good actress. Like, I think she really showed several times in this film her potential. Yeah. Like, her acting potential. Because, that scene when she, like, force lightning that thing and she realizes that, oh my God, Chewie was on there. Yeah. The way that she, like, shouts his name and, like, starts, like, just the look of anguish on her face. And then, like, when they're on the ship and her guilt that she's feeling about. I mean, I thought that was really super impactful. Yeah, I mean, I really liked it. Again, I didn't see the second. We went back a second time. I didn't see the second transport still. Oh, I did. When we go back a third time, I'll look for it. I saw it the second time. It was right beside it. Like, I don't know how we missed it the first time. I'll look for it the third time and go see it. Yeah, it was there. But yeah, so with Chewie again, going back to Rey's reaction, when you think about it again, he was the one that went to Octu with her. Again, a character that she has spent the most time with, more than Finn, I think. Yeah. Really. Oh, so, she had a deep connection, which is why she had that reaction, which I thought fit beautifully in there. Yeah, no, I agree. With Chewie. So, great there. And, of course, I didn't like how he got his medal at the end. That was definitely a fan service moment because it's been something that's... It was a fan service thing, but what did it hurt? But, I don't know if people caught it or not. I caught it where when Leia actually laid down... She had it in her hand. She had it in her hand, yeah, yes. I saw that. And to me, I felt like for me that was... it wasn't his... I think it was... It was Hans. It was Hans. Yeah. And I would much rather have, like, him flipped it over and it said Han Solo on it or something. But I think that you're supposed to see that Leia has it in her hands... And that now it's like... You get the sense it was Hans. Yeah, it was Hans. I mean, I thought it was obvious that it was Hans. That's what I got, yes. And that now it's being passed to Chewie. It's either Han or Luke's, and I don't think it's Luke's. No, I think it's Hans. I think it was Hans. That's why Leia had it when she laid down. And then it was passed to Chewie as a token because Han was his best friend, Leia was his, wife. His friend. Yeah, like I think that was what you're supposed. I don't think you're supposed to think they just like made a new one for him. Yeah, exactly. Like it's Han. I don't think so either. Yeah, so I got that sense. So you had that moment at the end. So Chewie does what Chewie does, and you gotta love it. He didn't have any interaction with Porgs though. Like what happened to the Porgs that were in the Falcon last time? They probably have died. Maybe Porgs have lived very long. I don't know. He probably ate them when he got hungry. Maybe. Maybe they're now off, like populating a new planet. There you go. Much like Jawas. See, they're off planet. That's what it is. I guess. Okay, so I think the last character we can talk about, Rose Tico, killing Retread. She didn't really do much in this one. People are criticizing that because of how people reacted to her in The Last Jedi. They felt like she got shortchanged in this one. Simply because of the audience reaction. They didn't need her in I don't think that's what it was. I think it was she had nothing to do. Yeah, they didn't need a mechanic in this one. Well, again, she wasn't on the ship. Leia told her to stay behind to study the Star Destroyers, which as a mechanic was what she would do. That's what she would do. Yeah, she wouldn't go with Finn and Poe. Why would she go with why would this mechanic go with the general? Which is basically what Poe and Finn become, and with Rey. Yeah, she's not an adventurer. No, she wouldn't. She would stay back. They established that in The Last Jedi. That was her first mission with Finn to go out and go on an adventure. She's usually, underneath an engine or something like that. Yeah, she's back behind fixing things and making sure that the fleet can run smoothly. And she served her purpose in The Last Jedi. So again, what other purpose did she have in this film? Yeah. Especially since her and Finn did not have a relationship that carried on. So what other part would she have except for just a side character? So I don't think it has anything to do with the reaction of how she was perceived by some people in The Last Jedi. I think it's just what the character is. Yeah, they also gave her a better hairdo. Side note.
Freaking hairdo. Oh my gosh. Not many people voted on that poll either.
No, they did not. But they did give her a much better hairdo in this one.
Fair enough. All right. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to talk about the last scene, the very end, when Rey goes back to the Skywalker farm. Mm-hmm. Well, this is the Lars farm. This is the Lars farm, exactly. Mm-hmm. And you see it's been time. It's pretty much all under sand at that point. Mm-hmm. And she takes the lightsabers, which we didn't even talk about this. Leia. Jedi training.
Oh, I love that bit. That is probably my favorite. Okay, if I don't know, but that might be my favorite part is when her and Luke, as like young ones, are fighting.
And now,
I love it.
And now it's one of the things like in the books, in the comics, expanded universe, whatever you want to call it, they haven't touched on that yet.
Mm-hmm. So I cannot wait for that story.
Now they just opened the door again. Opened it more, and I loved, I think they did a great job with the CGI face on them. Oh, yeah,
on both of them.
Making them look like their younger selves. I thought that was great. Mm-hmm. And again, the part where they talked about how she, in the Force vision, she saw, how it would affect her son if she continued her training. Mm-hmm. So she went the other way, where we always thought that, she chose to be more political than rather Jedi because that's where she felt like she was needed the most, which I think is still true in some point, but also, she turned away to, again, save her son.
Mm-hmm. What I like about that scene, too, is that she beats him. Just saying.
Well, maybe he let her win. I don't know. Maybe, who knows, but...
Okay, well, then also with that last scene, then we have to talk about Rey's new lightsaber.
Okay, so yes. So we're led to believe that is her new lightsaber, is what it is.
Mm-hmm. We're not led to believe. She's literally holding it.
She's holding it, of course. Because some people were like, oh, maybe she found another one, or I'm like, no, that's her lightsaber. Because I was talking about, I know I talked about with JR the other night too, where like part of a Jedi's training to finalize is building their own lightsaber, which is why I didn't get why she put together Luke's old lightsaber that broke at the end of Last Jedi, because when Luke lost his lightsaber at the end of Empire, he had to make another one. But I guess he totally lost that, so she could she still had it, she could fix it, whatever. But I think it would have been better for me if she would have had that lightsaber through the whole film.
Mm-hmm. The new one, you mean?
Yeah. Although, however, there was this symmetry there where at the end of Force Awakens, when Kylo Ren was like, "That lightsaber belongs to me." And then at the end, what happens at the end? She gives it to him at the end to fight the Knights of Ren, which, by the way, were totally worthless. Mm-hmm. Totally worthless.
Oh, yeah. Like, who the hell even were they? Didn't even, explain anything about them.
In the comic book that came out on Wednesday, the Rise of Kylo Ren, they're going to go into more of the Knights of Ren, who we've been teased about this entire trilogy, and they ended up being Boba Fett's, in my opinion, is what it is.
They didn't do shit.
But in the comic, they're talking about how they're basically this group of mercenaries who are like almost purifiers or whatever, and in the comic, in the first issue at least, they're looking for a leader, someone strong enough to lead them, and that's when they find it in him, I guess. So it's where I believe they're going with it. But anyway, in the movie, they were just worthless, completely worthless, in my opinion.
So Rey's new lightsaber.
Yes.
Did you notice it almost looked like it was double-ended?
That's what someone else said to me too.
When I was looking at it, to me, it looked very much like Darth Maul's lightsaber.
The way it was shaped, yeah.
The way it was shaped, and it looked like it could be double-sided.
And that's what I wanted. When the lightsaber broke at the end of Last Jedi, I was like, okay, she's got to build a new lightsaber, And Rey, we know, is really good with the staff. Obviously, she still carries it around with her in this one, too.
Yeah, I felt like a double-ended blade would be very appropriate.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why it made sense to me. And, after playing Jedi Fallen Order and playing most of the time with a double-bladed lightsaber, it's freaking awesome. So, yes, I would have loved to have seen that.
I mean, there was, one scene when she flipped it on where you could kind of see the bottom of it on screen still, and it looked just like the top.
Oh, my God. If they would have just flickered that other side.
I know, right?
The cheer would have been... You actually would have gotten a cheer at the end of this film.
Yeah, it definitely looked like a double-ended blade to me.
Yeah.
Which I think is appropriate for her.
All right, so at the very end, she sees in the distance, of course, she says she's a Skywalker. Totally get it, yes. We knew that was coming. She sees Luke and Leia, which kind of, goes back to the end of Return of the Jedi when Luke sees, Anakin, Yoda, Obi-Wan. I wish not only, I'm not saying you could have shown all the Jedi, but you had a horizon where you could have done that, but at least see Ben.
That would have been hardcore fan service, though, if they had played all those.
I don't
maybe
think
Ben.
Ben. I'm saying at least Ben, because she had a connection with Leia. She had a connection with Luke. At least show Ben too, because she had a connection with him.
I think I don't know. I mean, I think I think the whole purpose of showing Luke and Leia then was because she had just chosen the Skywalker surname because of them.
Yeah.
I think if you played Ben into it, it would lead back
He's a Skywalker.
Yeah, but I think it would have played too closely back to the fact that they had just kissed.
Which we didn't talk about that. Again, another forced kiss in my opinion.
No, I mean, I thought that
fan service.
It was fan service, right? But I mean, I think it felt more natural than most of Anakin and Padme's relationship,
or Rose and Finn,
Yeah, this one at least felt appropriate.
I would have much rather him saved her, and then they look at each other, and then he falls over.
I thought the kiss was good.
I didn't like.
I liked the kiss
whatever.
Because he smiled after it. And that was the only smile that you got from Kylo Ren in the entire trilogy.
That's true. I'll give you that. I mean, it was those things, too, where, we talked about this in the last... Now, again, I want to talk about what we talked about last week on The Last Jedi was, you said you didn't feel like Kylo Ren ever actually had feelings for Rey. He was just trying to turn her. Do you still feel that way?
No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
After the kiss, I mean,
I think in this one, it definitely seemed like... I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe there was more of something there in the last one. Because, I mean, I think in this one they definitely show that. Because if it was just about power, then I definitely think that when the Emperor told him to kill her, he would have just killed her.
Yeah.
So...
Instead he tried to turn her.
Plus, I think that just with their interactions, it was... I mean, I think they definitely played up that they had a different kind of connection like that in this one, so that it was I wasn't surprised by the kiss.
Okay, cool. All right, so
oh my gosh, I'm not sure what our children are doing out there, but
it's all right. We're almost done. We got a few more minutes. Okay, so this wraps it all up. This is the end of Star Wars as we know it with the episodes. I don't think we're getting any more episodes, honestly, for the rest of Skywalker. Or in my opinion, at least, we shouldn't. In my opinion. So, as far as ending the Skywalker saga, how do you feel they ended it? Do you think it was a good ending? Do you feel like it wrapped everything up? What do you say?
Yeah, I liked it.
I mean, 9 episodes.
I mean, I think it definitely starting and end. I think it wraps up the Skywalkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all dead now.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I knew, one way or another, I knew Kylo/Ben was going down.
Yeah.
Because he was the last of the bloodline.
Well, and that's what I said. It had to be. He had to go, and he had to end the line. I think it just made sense.
Yeah.
No,
I think it ends, again, they talked about with Anakin Skywalker, because, it kind of all leads back to him. His, the first one was about, him. The second one was about, his redemption. And the third one was really about his legacy, to the galaxy, how it affected the galaxy, how it affected Kylo Ren, his grandson, all that stuff. So... his legacy, I think, is done.
Yeah, I think
so.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like it is a proper end to it. Again, not exactly how I wanted everything to go down, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And that's really what this film comes down to me. I don't like some of the choices that were made, but I'm okay with it.
But see, here's the difference. So everybody loves the original trilogy, right? But if we think about it, we weren't all there expecting what was coming. Nobody went into those with expectations. And I think that's one of the reasons why people like those so much compared to the new ones. With the new ones, the episode, the prequels or the sequels, everybody had expectations with those. Everybody had already preconceived notions of what they wanted it to be, based on the Legends books, based on the new canon books. People are more critical of these because they had time to hope for something, to analyze, and then to hope, to anticipate, to expect, to predict, to speculate, to hope for what they wanted these new ones to be. And I think that's why people are so critical of these. I mean, I think if these had come out like the original trilogy, people would not have had this much animosity around them, because I think that's one of the reasons people like the original trilogy so much.
Oh, I think it has to do with the age thing. We grew up on the original trilogy, much like how people who grew up on the prequels, they like the prequels. And that, I think it's just what it comes down to. What you grow up on, what do you already have established within yourself.
That
what
you base everything else on.
Exactly.
That's the whole thing. Yeah, we base everything on the original trilogy. Or people who grew up with the prequels, they base everything on the prequels.
And now this generation is going to base everything off of this.
I mean, look at MJ's response to when Kylo Ren died.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the same kind of thing. This is a whole new generation.
Yeah, she's 13, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, five years ago was when it came out.
Yeah, that was
she was, what, 8?
7 or 8.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, she was the ripe age. The perfect
exactly.
age.
And that's my point. Like, I think it's what you started with is what shapes your perspective, and then you expect everything else based. Your expectations are molded by that. What are you doing?
Your focus determines your reality.
Oh God, your accents. Would you quit that shit?
Anyway, okay, go.
No, I'm done.
Okay, I think we're done, guys. Okay, I think we've talked long enough about this. Time for you guys to fire back, of course. DayspringDiscussions@gmail.com, the Facebook group, Twitter account, YouTube comments, anything, guys. We want to know what you think. Do you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? It's a discussion, guys, so let us discuss it, and that is going to be it. This week, Christmas, obviously, it's a busy time, so no more shows for the rest of the week. Lisa's already gone, as she likes to go out and leave as I'm wrapping up. So there you have that. But anyway, guys, go online. Let's talk about it. Let us know what you think. I hope you guys have a great Christmas. And as always, may the Force be with us all.